Recording. All right, hey guys, welcome to this very first sort of episode of a special segment in our podcast, Fast Forward, which is a Tech 2025 podcast that we do all about the future, about getting through this pandemic and preparing for what's to come. Those of you who know us and who are part of the community know that this is what we've been doing since like 2017, okay? So, but the conversation is changing. Everything, the world around us is changing. And so the podcast right now, Fast Forward, which just launched August, is focusing on the post-pandemic innovation field. So that's everything regarding technologies that's going to help us to understand how to put our world sort of back together in a way that's more equitable, right? In a way that we can all participate in these things. And so I'm really excited about the podcast. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus since August because August was really weird, as it always is. And so really excited to get back up and going. This segment right here, I've decided to do for two reasons. Number one, this is called Quick Question. And the idea behind that is, number one, first of all, I want to do more video with you guys, which is really important. I have decided that I think it's important that we, we're doing the audio podcast, but I want to mix up sort of how we present content to you guys, because this is the pandemic world we're in, right? You don't really have a choice. This is how we're communicating. So we'll be doing this segment called Quick Question, where I get to sort of tap the brain of people I really respect and know. I have a lot of great people in my personal network, but also in the Tech 2025 network. We've been around for like 3 years already. And so we've had a lot of great speakers, a lot of advisors. I'll be bringing them to you. The idea behind this is that I know we're all home and it's very hard to kind of sort of emulate some of the things that we loved about being in the office. But remember when you used to be in the office before the pandemic and you would sort of bump into Bob at the coffee machine or Sally over by the copy machine and say, hey, I have a quick question, and you just could bounce an idea off of them and get some feedback that could really help you. That's what this is. So I have a quick question for someone who has a whole lot of knowledge, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it. Today we have Rich Mokuolu. I can butcher a name, so forgive me if I do. And today I'm so happy to be bringing you Rich, because he is a brilliant man in entrepreneurship and manufacturing and engineering. Just want to tell you really quickly who he is before I bring in his feed. So Richard, who is the co-founder of a company called Partsimony, he actually is co-founder of that with his brother, his twin, by the way. Richard has a passion for inventing and sort of tinkering with things, and this was ignited at an early age. So he has been basically someone who's been into engineering his whole life, which I really love and respect. So he has a patent related to military space and has experienced how difficult it is to get products up and going. And so his company focuses on helping entrepreneurs with the manufacturing process, which I think is amazing. He's done a lot. I'll let him tell you more about what he does. But I just want you to know that he's been one of our speakers in the past. He spoke at an event for us last year called Prototyping the Future, Technologies Driving Disruption in New York's Manufacturing and Supply Chain Ecosystem. That's a long title, but it was a good event. And he was on the panel. And he was also supposed to speak at an event for us in April that was canceled because of the coronavirus. But it was a trip that we were planning to Amazon's factory, their distribution center, or whatever you want to call it. And it was their fulfillment center, and it was called Automating Amazon, a private tour of Amazon's fulfillment center and a presentation on the impact of automation on supply chain management. Again, another long title, but he was going to be the guest speaker and we couldn't have him, but we have him today. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in, and we're going to talk about this question that I have. I really need his advice on this. All right, let me see here if I can do this without screwing up.
All right.
Hey.
We're in business.
Yes. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Dude, I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us today. You're the best.
Tech 2025 has amazing events, so just love being a part of it.
Thank you so much. Wore my special T-shirt as today, Star Wars Friday.
I wish I had one of those vintage shirts. I would have worn like Blade Runner or something. Like,
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because San Francisco kind of looks like a Blade Runner set.
No, it is Blade Runner. It will look like, okay, the end of the world is happening and it's starting there. All of California is falling off into the
Oh my
ocean.
gosh. Yeah, it's quite eventful.
It's insane. Thank you for joining me. So it's Friday morning, guys, just so you know. So this is really casual. It's meant to just be like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Tell me how, first of all, two things. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, let me make a confession to the audience about the two of us that I think will be really interesting to people to help you know a lot about us. So I learned really early on that the two of us, Rich and I, when we get on the phone and talk, we've had quite a few conversations with panels. You see, it's already starting. We
Oh my god.
other up. Okay. Sometimes I don't even know how to help with laughing. We're just laughing.
Oh, Charlie, you're hilarious. Like, I don't think people appreciate how much humor you have. Like, it's
if
awesome.
I didn't laugh, I'd cry. Gotta laugh, right? See, you see, and he has the laugh. You have like this hearty laugh that comes from the gut. And here's the thing, I'm gonna liken this to you. Remember when you were in high school and the two kids, or junior high, whatever, and there's always these two kids in the back of the class that won't stop laughing, and we're just like.
No, I don't know. It's a positive minus. I've tried to tame it, but I can't control it.
No, we need that during the pandemic. Trust me. Now more than ever. See, you see. And
I know that's true because the pandemic was crazy. Like I don't know if I told you I got married at a WeWork during the pandemic.
Oh my God! No.
Yeah. We tied the knot at a WeWork. So
how did we go? Why at a WeWork?
So we're supposed to get married in Turks and Caicos. They closed the borders. And my wife is a doctor, so she's going into Mount Sinai. So I was like, it's almost like going to war. It's like we should probably get married before you go to war.
And get your insurance papers in order in case one of us don't make it. I do. Where's the insurance papers? That's the kind of wife I'd be. Okay. Well, congratulations, because the last time I talked to you, you were planning the marriage and planning the wedding. And I was like, that's a beautiful thing. And then, okay, listen, love is all that matters, right?
That's true.
That and a face mask. And another quick aside, guys, regarding Rich, before we get into this, is that when I invited him to speak at our event last year, the manufacturing event, his brother came, right? Which I love, Roland, okay? And this whole laughter thing gets cute until a twin is added. And the both of them are laughing together. And I'm looking at them like, are y'all laughing at me? or with me? And it was a little creepy. I watch a lot of horror movies, so I was like, what's going on here?
It's a family thing, I guess.
Family thing, okay. So I brought you on today. By the way, I wanted to ask you before we get started, and this is a podcast, so we can chit chat about it. But I want to know, first of all, really how you're doing. Like, how have you been? How's your week going? But also what you guys have been doing at Partsimony, because you've got a lot going on. So
yeah. So that's a great question. So before the pandemic happened, like Partsimony was doing okay. Because our theory was about like, so just so everyone knows in the podcast, like, so Partsimony, what we do is we basically use data from transactional history of manufacturers and customers, hardware companies to be more specific, to help hardware companies make smart decisions to scale production, right? Really machine learning for manufacturing supply chain management, right? Our thesis is that the future paradigm is about hyper-local supply chains. So it's not so what was funny about that, Charlie, is before the pandemic, in some circles, we were like the tinfoil hat people, like hyper local supply chains is the future. Like, cool. We're always going to go to China. We're always going to go to
that's cute.
It is what it is. And then the pandemic happened. It's like, oh, you guys are actually not crazy. Like, this is actually like pretty interesting. So we were fortunate enough to be pulled into, helping support with PPE shortages, to supply them to hospitals, addressing supply chain there. We're also fortunate to be involved in the manufacturing of FDA EUA approved ventilators for New York City. So worked with New York City I know I see EDC to get them ventilators. It was kind of like it was that event, I guess, that took the company to the next level in the sense of like, okay, like this is a use case and it's kind of scaling there. So it's surprisingly, it's been really busy for us.
Wow. How has this changed the company itself in terms of the structure? Because you guys, I mean, that's one of the reasons I reached out to you last year and I was like, man, you guys are killing it, even though you were. No, well, because
on the outside, inside,
you said nobody knows.
Never laugh unless you cry. I'm kidding.
Listen, this is why this is important for us to know, because I'm talking to not just entrepreneurs, but everyone on this podcast. Here's the deal. And actually, most of our audience is actually, the people who work in companies or professionals or enterprise, whatever. So here's the thing. I saw in you guys with regards to your company, what you were doing last year. And I'm like, wow, okay, hyperlocal is where it's at, period. And that's kind of what that event was about last year, which was like hyperlocal. And you're right. Everyone was like, okay. We did. It's a nice to have. Yeah. But we got a great turnout for it. So I felt like people were hearing. But I am hearing about, and I think it's important for us to understand how, if you're an entrepreneur or if you are trying to figure out sort of what am I doing right now, what am I going to do, how to be forward thinking about things. It's really important that people look at the things that like you're doing as an entrepreneur, because you're guiding entrepreneurs in how to be forward thinking and how to turn that forward thinking into an actual business model. So how has your model changed since?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, like, from a model standpoint, it's fairly consistent. I think from a messaging standpoint, it's probably changed in the sense that we basically use the pandemic as a clear case study of why you need to be more predictive and dynamic in your supply chains.
Yeah.
So outside of just the ventilators and PPE, we use the example of like Peloton, right? So Peloton saw an amazing increase in demand for their products, but because they're so vertically integrated in supply chain, they couldn't really spool up new supply chains to meet that demand. So it's not always just about storages. It's about how do you dynamically like scale your capacity to meet your customer demand. I was telling people, if I was a competitor of Peloton and I had like a Partsimony that I was using, like like a plug in there, I could theoretically spool up a competing supply chain and hit that demand.
Apple did that. Apple just announced something that actually is, I forget what the product is, but it was just this week at their event. And they announced something that actually is a direct competitor to.
Yeah, and it's like it's all about speed to market and cost efficiencies, right? So the person who is, for anything physical, whether it's furniture, laptops, phones, if you can be very fast and cost effective, not just when I say cost effective, I don't mean cheap labor, like cheap cost. I mean working capital, meaning like you can get the money from the customer and then pay your suppliers, not get the inventory and then try to fund the customers. Those are the companies that are going to win in this new paradigm. And it's really hard to do. And a lot of times, the people who do a great job of it have huge departments like Apple. They have huge departments like just solely focused on this. But if you're not an Apple, you kind of need a leg up. And that's where Partsimony comes in, is basically machine learning to give people that additional leg up.
Wow. So you were a huge support, which you naturally are, to the companies that you service, right? So the startups and the entrepreneurs that you service on your platform, how have they been doing what are some of the things that you're hearing from them in regards to the pandemic that may have surprised you, or
I would say so. There are two kind of customers. One were the customers who like were a little bit affected in terms of their product offering, right? So, for example, a customer in like Home Depot, like in construction, like, so that's a challenge. But for the customers, so other customers who are doing like, whether it's workout equipment or wearables or whatever, actually saw an increase in a spike, and we would see that they're scaling they're scaling up or they're scaling initiatives.
Okay. Wow. It's fascinating. What I realized too in this conversation is that we need to have more of these conversations with you.
It's very fascinating times. It's very like this new. It's a new paradigm. I think COVID was a huge accelerant for a lot of things. I think it unearthed a lot of inefficiencies that people really didn't talk about out loud. Like if you were in the sector, you knew. Like it was not a surprise to people in the supply chain sector that there was a PPE storage, there was ventilator storages, or like,
right.
It wasn't a surprise, but it was a surprise to mainstream people who just didn't really know. Like, okay, why is it so hard? Okay, why is there a tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3 supplier structure?
Right.
And how does it actually work?
See, and that's and to your point, that's why, especially some of the things that we stress here at Tech 2025, is that it exposed inefficiencies in systems, but also in thinking. Yes, and the inability to be flexible in thinking and to think ahead, which everyone should know how to do. We're not necessarily taught that in school, and we don't. Well, the two of us were busy laughing in the back of the class, but somehow we got the lesson. So yeah, but it's really important. And so that's why the topic that for the quick question today, this is why I'm so excited to have you on, because I have this idea about 3D printing and this one particular course that I found that I want to talk to you about. So I'm going to just tell you right off the bat why I think we should have. So guys, I found this 3D printing course on Kickstarter. So an entrepreneur is launching a course. I'm going to show it on my screen in a minute. And the course is on how to become a 3D printing entrepreneur. Now, I'm tapping you, Rich, and your expertise because of a couple of things. Number one, I think that we are not stressing the need for diversity in our continuous learning with regards to technologies. All you hear about is coding, and that's all well and good. We can all learn how to code, but there are a lot of other technologies, old and new, that are actually that are in play here with regards to innovation, as we've learned throughout the pandemic, that don't get emphasized or even talked about enough. And I think 3D printing is one of them. 3D printing, in my opinion, you tell me if you think differently, saved our asses in the pandemic in a number of ways, right? And I mean, it did, and that doesn't get talked about, but it really, and 3D printing is going to be huge in space exploration. It already is, right? And there's a lot of opportunities for people who are sitting here right now thinking, what am I, I want to do something, I want to learn, I want to upskill, I get it now. If I take coding, now what? Well, I think people should be diversifying their technological learning, and 3D printing is one of those technologies that I think we should all have that. Having said that, I don't. So when I saw, and by the way, Rich, my confession to you regarding 3D printing, and I hope you don't think less of me because of it, is that, the guy Drew, who's one of the 3D printing, I think he's founder of, what's that 3D printing company from 15 years ago? He's like one of the luminaries in 3D printing. Drew, he's in my network too. I forget his name.
Leviticus, like what company was it? Was it?
I think was it Maker? It was
MakerBot.
MakerBot, was that it? The 3D.
No, that's not Drew. That's
It was one of the first. And 3D printing has been around for 30 years, yeah. I know. But in terms of the modern era of 3D printing companies, in other words, a 3D printer itself, I don't know. Anyway, 12 years ago, I saw him, or maybe 10 years ago, I saw him at an event. It was a sort of a maker conference for executives, and so you can imagine it was really and he was showing us this new his 3D printing. He was so excited, as tech people are, about their gadgets, and I remember, and I'm a techie now, I'm a tech bro, you know that, but I remember looking at it, and he was printing something as we were talking. So he was giving us a demonstration, about 10 of us standing around his table, and he printed it, and I remember thinking, okay, this is taking a long time. Just speed this up. Okay, that's number one. And number two, when he showed us the finished product, I was like, okay, get the cart, the guy, the sandwiches. I was already on to the next thing. So that's fine. One thing that I want to stress to our audience right now, and Rich, I think you can appreciate this, is that just because you are passionate about one particular technology doesn't mean that you're passionate or necessarily get in your heart another. 3D printing is just one of those things where I love it. I understand the importance of it, and I love learning about how it's impacting things. But anytime I've tried to learn about 3D printing, and I've tried other ways too, I've gone to maker spaces and everything, it doesn't move me. And so at all. And so I'm always thinking of ways within the Tech 2025 community of how we can get people who may not obviously be very interested in it, how to get them to learn about it in a way that resonates with them. So this 3D printing entrepreneur thing for me was like, boom, right? So here's, right? So here's the page. And just before we click over there, here's how this is going to work, guys. I'm going to take you over to the page right now. I'm just going to scroll through it really quickly. And then I'm going to let Rich take over. And my quick question to you, Rich, is should I take this course? Should we be recommending it? I want to be clear that this is a Kickstarter campaign. I'm not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with that, nor is Tech 2025. And we're not trying to like tear an entrepreneur down who's trying to build a business at all. So we're not being negative about whether or not you think you should or shouldn't. This is just, these are our questions and our feedback and our insights, or Rich's insights. So if there's a problem, talk to him.
Oh boy.
And nothing to do with it. Also, let's keep in mind that entrepreneurs, and Rich, this is something that I want to ask you about too, that one of the biggest sectors that can benefit from 3D printing is small businesses and the entrepreneur field, but this field isn't reaping the benefits of this technology as it should because of myths about the technology, and that's according to the entrepreneur life. So we'll get to that too. All right, here's the page. And Rich, I know you looked at it, so can't wait to get your feedback. Okay, guys, so here's the Kickstarter page. And I gotta tell you, from a marketer standpoint, I was immediately blown away. Look at that blue, isn't it beautiful? Like, I'm a marketer guy, but this is important because when you talk about conveying the excitement about technology that a lot of people may not, the visuals help. So I'm like, wow. So here it is. I'm gonna scroll through it really quickly. The things that drew me in was like, okay, share knowledge. This is someone who's trying to build a business on teaching other people how to be 3D printing entrepreneurs. I'm seeing brand names here. This is great. Look at this. I know most of these. So they're affiliated with that. They've been featured in that. It's a basic 3D printing course, super efficient, 100% online, and it's mobile. Great, which is amazing. And you get to the application focus, which I feel like they're communicating the information that I need as someone who doesn't know anything about this to make me feel like I would be getting a comprehensive course, because that's what I don't want to hear part 10, 3, 4, 5. I want everything in one course, enough to make me feel like I can understand this, right? So here are the course subjects, monetization. What do I do with this knowledge? That's very important. How can we take the knowledge that we are getting about these technologies and turn them into a business or a consultancy? Or if you're working in a company, I happen to think enterprise, big companies need to be considering that this is something that maybe their employees should be looking at too. It's valuable as a skill. So anyway, here's the, I'm just gonna continue scrolling. A lot of info to take in, but you can see why I hope I was excited about this, all right? Startup support, wow. Course options, and here are the prices. Early bird, and this is of course Kickstarter, so you know this is based on a tier. It's premium is out of the question, but you get there you go. It's quickly right. I'm looking at tier 1, my man. Okay. And then so it's a well communicated page. I do have questions and concerns. I feel like their pledges are not really where they need to be. And look, the values, which is very important. No one ever talks about 3D printing values, or maybe they do and I'm not hearing it, right? But the ethics of 3D printing. If you're going to take a course like this, understand what that is. I love this. Sustainability. So anyway, you get the picture. Guys, I'm going to put this link in the bar at the side, the comment section, and then I'll also put this in, obviously, in the thank you email. So anyway, that's it. Rich, I am going to let you take it from here. You can share your screen. Do you have the page up?
Yeah, I can share.
If you want, I mean, if you let it, in terms of if you'd like to just sort of maybe highlight some things that you think are good, or maybe things that maybe you're kind of wondering about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it would be great to have just a conversation.
Okay, however you want to do it, I would love that.
Yeah, because I think talking through the trends that are driving things like this course, for example, is really important.
Sure.
So if we're to take a step back, let's just talk about the 3D space in general, right? As you mentioned, 3D printing has been around for a while. It wasn't really sought after when it came out, specifically around there wasn't a true proven use case because the quality wasn't necessarily as great as it is today, right? So from a quality perspective, you know, you had the typical FDM, whatever have you. The surface finish was not necessarily as good. So back in the days, like you could usually print out toys or knickknacks or whatever have you,
Right.
but the solid use case around it was really lacking, right? Now, fast forward to today where you have, you know, metal 3D printing, you have more complex types of 3D printers out there from like HP and others. It really unlocks that use case. And you're seeing that basically force a level of adoption that wasn't really there before when it really started out. Now, the question is, why do you want to take a course on 3D printing, right? So you have to answer the question of, you fall into two categories. Are you the person that wants to use it, one, to upskill themselves, or like your hobbyist that wants to learn about this technology? And then two, you want to make money from this, right? You want to have a business, you want to have a service bureau or whatever have you. If you're the first category, right, obviously this course is no brainer. You know, it provides like a good entry level way to try to understand the different use cases and how to produce CAD files or 3D printable and things to look out for sure. If you're trying to look at this course to make money, then the considerations are different. And why? It sounds very counterintuitive because you're like, okay, why not? If I can take it for a hobby, why shouldn't I just take this course to make money? And the challenge is when you look at the 3D printing use case, 3D printing typically has been really good for prototypes, right? So you're looking to validate an engineering design. It's highly customized, right? So it's not something that can be typically injection molded, right? So the shapes are very complex, right? So the use cases for that is typically you'd look at high-tech hardware, maybe like space, like combustion chambers or whatever have you, right? And for those kind of businesses, there's a lot of CapEx that goes into it to be really efficient. So you have to, you know, hire people, you have to run all the printers, you have to maintain those printers. Sometimes you have to have the infrastructure, especially if you're doing metal 3D printing. Some of the processes are highly combustible, so you can't just do it in your garage, right? So there's a lot of considerations. Yeah, I know. So there's a lot of considerations that go into how do I actually make money from this? Now, there are use cases out there of people, you know, starting out in the garage or whatever have you. But the problem you run into is how do you aggregate demand, right? So you spent all this money building your business or your 3D printing business. How do you actually capture demand, right? And usually the archetype of customer who basically is a mom and pop and they have a 3D printing business, they try to brute force it themselves by like advertising, right? Or the easier path is they plug into like any service bureau like Xometry, you know, 3 Hubs, whatever have you. But the challenge with that is that when you plug into a service bureau, you become less of a business and more of a like service provider that you're just printing parts for someone else, right? So it's like you rely on the person who's aggregating the demand for you to dictate what your price and margins should be, right? When in reality, if you actually like a solid manufacturer, let's say work for GE or whatever have you, you get more leeway in dictating your margins, you get more leeway in building customer relationships. And that's not there right now if you're using the service bureau route, right? So then you say, okay, then what? Like either am I stuck with a service bureau model or am I stuck trying to brute force this myself? Well, there's a third avenue that you can kind of use from a business standpoint where the most compelling use cases for 3D printing yourself and having a business yourself is having engineering services tied to that 3D printing, right? So whether it's, you know, you're helping the customer or the client in this case finalize and crystallize their ideas, right? And then using your 3D printing capabilities to manufacture a small batch productions in-house. And then when they're ready to move on to mass scale production, they're going to go anyway to a larger like tier 1 supplier or tier 2 supplier, whatever have you, right? So, and if you look at the 3D printing companies that do a great job at this, like a percentage of their work is really working with the NPI, new product introduction teams, the engineering teams, to scale their ideas from idea to reality, right? I've said a lot, but yeah, it's really interesting. Oh, you're on mute, Charlie.
Yes. Wow. Okay. I feel like you know how I feel like, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, because I think here's the thing. I want to be honest about how I'm feeling about what I'm learning. And I know, I mean, and people are like, oh, Charlie, you know tech, you've been in tech for years. No one knows everything. There's a lot I don't know. And I want to bring people along on this process that I'm going through on the technologies that, again, that are not necessarily glorified the way coding and AI and machine learning is. And so I feel suddenly, just with what you said, like wah wah wah. like, like I'm getting ready to take off my Star Wars, put on like, wait, because you said so many, like, you know, even the whole combustible thing, like in the middle. Okay, so let me just ask you this question then, because
Yep.
I'm suddenly realizing, I mean, you kept the things that jumped out at me were use cases, which is always important. You know, how, whether or not you're the middleman or whatever, if I thought to myself right now, I'm going to take a course in 3D printing, but I want it to be a course that's going to help me to understand the potential of what I can do with this knowledge, to move myself forward in this world, maybe to diversify my income, diversify my opportunities, and to maybe be a superhero at work. You know, the company I work in, maybe they use 3D printing, or they may need those services at some point, and at some point I'll be that expert on the team, right? So looking at this course, then let me ask you a question. Do you think that this course, and I'm not asking whether or not it's good or bad because you don't know, would this be a good line of which way to go, or should we do the more MOOC route with like a course on Coursera or edX or one or the other, which I was trying to avoid because I think those tend to be a little off-putting, if not because they're like, you know,
slightly generic maybe. Yeah, and it's interesting you actually say that, as I feel that the more you're in the industry, the more you get to know where all the skeletons are buried. And it might actually sound like, you know, it's not very exciting anymore, but it actually is exciting, right?
No, it is.
It actually is exciting. It's just the challenge is this. The challenge is knowing how to execute in the 3D printing space. There are a lot of people who see 3D printing as this magic wand they can just wave and parts automatically get creative, or you know, it's I just need to have a 3D printer in my basement and all of a sudden I can start making a ton of money. Right. So the 3D printing is the future. What I'm talking about is, if you're trying to make money from it, you have to be very, very targeted and very specific in your strategy to make money from it. I think 3D printing is going to replace a ton of manufacturing processes, especially as design catches up, because there's so many things that you can do with 3D printing, where, you know, the future is going to be highly customizable, right? Where things are going to be made specifically to how you are as a person and how you, like, your body and your shape and everything. And you're seeing companies like even Nike and Adidas play around with this, like highly customized shoes and everything, right? Even the like dental industry is doing this already, like mass scaling 3D printer technologies for retainers and stuff, right? So it's just understanding the use case that you want to really target is a thing. If 3D printing doesn't really help, if you're trying to be a generalist, right? It's better served as you using 3D printing as an added service to your main business. Meaning, I'm an engineering firm, and, you know, I'm a generalist. I serve a ton of customers, so I'm going to add 3D printing as an extra service I can give my customer base. Or I'm a manufacturer, right? I'm going to add 3D printing as an extra service I can give my customers. If you're trying to make 3D printing your sole bread and butter, then the equation definitely changes, right? And that's all I was trying to highlight. It's
no. This is amazing. This is great. Because it's not just that. Regarding small businesses, I was thinking, as I watch small businesses struggle, and they're still struggling. I mean, we're going to be seeing a lot of businesses go under, unfortunately, in the next several months. Here's the thing. I would love to know what you think about this, because what I was thinking was, you know, listen, I'm not saying that 3D printing is a one shot, you know, it's going to everything, but I would love to know if you agree with this following statement from this Entrepreneur Life website, because I thought it was true. I could be wrong, but here's the thing. It says the main reason small businesses are not rushing to embrace 3D printing tech hinges on misconceptions. Most believe 3D printing to be futuristic tech that is very expensive to implement in real life. One of the biggest sectors that can benefit from 3D printing is small businesses and the entrepreneur field, yet this field is not reaping the benefits of this technology as it should. My thinking, or how I'm interpreting that, is that, there are a lot of startups and small businesses that could benefit from using this technology, and they don't, because they think that there is this big barrier of entry, and there might be. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that? Is that accurate? And how can small businesses and entrepreneurs gain this knowledge and use this technology? And I know it depends on use case, so I'm not trying to be too much of a generalist here, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I agree with the ethos of it, that I don't think the true values of what 3D printing can provide has really been unlocked, like at mass scale. There are a few exceptions, right? So you have the whole dentist industry has really benefited from 3D printing. Aviation is also benefiting from 3D printing, right? Where there's space and rock building more efficient combustion chambers and everything. So those are sectors that are really pushing the bounds of what 3D printing can do. I think that the real question now becomes, as a small business, what does it make sense to adopt 3D printing, right? Because 3D printing is just another tool, just like AI is another tool, and digital twins are another tool. And it's getting people out of the mindset of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, or just, you have a hammer, I'm going to start smashing everything because everything looks like a nail, right? It's really about, each company or each small business have to assess for themselves, where does it make sense to adopt 3D printing, and being open to 3D printing. You're absolutely right in saying that over the years, people have sought 3D printing as this super futuristic thing that is unapproachable, is just so complex or very costly. And over the years, there's been a huge change in that, right? 3D printers are more affordable than they've ever been, right? It depends on what kind of 3D printer you're buying, right? But by and large, the cost has been going down, and the quality has been going up, right? Which means that the use cases are now more wider, right? In terms of you can now do more and more stuff with 3D printing. I think an industry segment that hasn't really seen a lot of, that can see a lot of value from 3D printing that hasn't really been unlocked, is furniture. Literally, you can have really good furniture and artistic furniture, and you can create a brand on really highly customized high art furniture, and you have to make thousands of these, right? You can be like the Herman Millers, right? So, and you can have a really, really good business from that. So not a lot of people have really done that. So there are just different use cases you can use. Again, it's just, you have to ask yourself, for my business, does it really make sense?
Right. No, that's a great point. And to your point, there's 2 points that you made. One, in regards to the idea that we have been conditioned through the mass media, entertainment and everything, to look for easy solutions, and that tech is like, hey, I'll just learn the code and then I'll create. It's like, you know me, I want it instantly. Well, and let's flash back. Let's flash back to the top of the show when I talked about going to that 3D printing conference 10 years ago, where I'm standing at the table and then the printer's gone, and I'm just like, okay, and then when it printed, he was like, ta-da, it's a cup. And I was like, that's not a cup. I can't think out of that. So we are conditioned, Cal, for whatever, to want the pizzazz, the immediacy of it all. But to your point, I do think this is really important for people to learn, because it is a tool. But as we've learned in the pandemic, we don't want to learn about the importance of a tool when it's too late or when we're in a catastrophe, right? We want to understand the importance of it and probably think through it and those use cases ahead of time. And so that's why I think your feedback, thank you so much, has been so amazing.
And just to reiterate, I say all that to say, I think it's a wonderful course to take. I think everyone should be familiar with 3D printing, at least somewhat familiar with 3D printing, because it is going to be the future of manufacturing.
Right.
It really is.
It is, and I'm excited. I'm still excited about it. I don't know if I'm going to take this course, but we are going. I'll talk to you behind the scenes because I'm tapping you again. Because here's what I'm. Don't try to leave me. I will find you. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking, and this will be the last question that I ask you. And guys, if you're in the thank you. Hey, I'm gonna great discussion points. What got me intrigued, this is from Glenn Watson, great discussion points. What got me intrigued was seeing people on the news use 3D to create face shields. Yes.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, it was amazing. Face shields, even face masks were customizable and everything.
Right.
I think the pandemic, there's a lot of bad that happened because of it, but I think there's also a lot of good that happened because of the pandemic.
Right.
They really pushed people to adopt, technologies that were just on the shelf that people thought was nice to have, and really saw the actual need for it.
Exactly. And it did excite. I found it to be exciting. And here's what we're going to do at Tech 2025. And guys, I'm going to take questions from you before we go. You feel free to ask questions right now. I just want to say what we're going to be doing at Tech 2025, and I'm going to talk to you about this, is I want to, we're going to be doing micro courses on some of the things that you've been talking about, which is use cases and thinking through this stuff before you even learn about the specifics of the technology, because I think that's sometimes what trips people up, right? It's like he showed me that he printed a cup, and I was like, great, whatever, but it didn't really resonate. I think if you maybe another way to go about this for ordinary people, and I'm talking about people who are working and who are trying to figure things out, is maybe if we talk about the use cases and then talk about the different ways to learn about this stuff, that'll be exciting for us. That would help. So. And maybe the idea of creating 3D printing co-ops. Does that make sense? Like groups?
Yeah. I think, again, just going to the point that we were talking about earlier, I think the future is having a dynamic, hyper-local supply chain. Mm-hmm. And co-ops could be another version of that as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And here, I'm going to start taking questions now. So Christopher, hey Chris, said, and Chris, by the way, was on the panel with us last year. So he did amazing too. Chris said, since 3D models, who, by the way, Chris is in 3D imaging, right? Is that right, Chris? 3D capture imaging.
Right, scanning real world materials into the 3D space.
He just launched some in that. Yeah, he's brilliant. He says, since 3D models are necessary for 3D printing, I have found small businesses are really missing the modeling portion. That's so true. So let me just, Kalia says, hey, Rich, you owe me money. Oh, what? No. I'm kidding, guys. I can't get through a show without saying that. Somebody owes me money. She says, hey, Rich, do you think 3D printing will become a consumer household? Hey, listen. She laughed. Listen, since there's so few of us, I'm just going to unmute you. Kayla.
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute.
Yeah, Kayla.
Oh, good. Okay.
Kayla?
Ask the question.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for leading this, Charlie. Rich, what's up? You do owe me money, lots of money. No, my question for both of you is just what do you think the future of 3D printing will be, and do you see it?
Oh, you want to mute Kayla.
Kayla, you went back on mute.
Sorry, my bad. I don't know why that happened. So my question to you all was, do you think 3D printing will become more of a consumer household type of product, and when do you think that'll happen? When do you see a greater use of it in everyday life?
It's such a brilliant question. That's such a brilliant question.
Great question.
And so let's take a step back. I view, and I could be wrong, I view 3D printers as what the printing press were back in the day, right? Where it was an industrial setting, you have to use a printing press or whatever have you. And then all of a sudden you can print high quality prints from your living room, right? Right. I think the future of 3D printing and retail, specifically, especially customized products or kitchen appliances or whatever have you, knives or whatever, you're going to have a 3D printer in your home to replace spare parts. And it's going to be one of those things where instead of going to the store or Home Depot, right? You just go online and you send a print of the spare part that you're looking to replace to your 3D printer. So just like you have a Keurig, you just have a 3D printer for parts in your kitchen or something. So if you're trying to replace like, oh, there's like, I'm trying to assemble this IKEA furniture. I need a screwdriver. I'm not gonna have a whole box set of screws. I'm just gonna have a 3D printer and print a screwdriver, right?
Yeah.
Or I need to have, you know, the leg of my couch. It's sheared off or something. Okay, I'm just gonna print another like screw cap and do it myself, right? I think that's gonna be the future. I think you're already seeing that be adopted in the toy space. So this company called Toy Box, they basically 3D print toys for kids. So the kid has a 3D printer and they can print as many toys as they want. So yeah, Kayla, I think it's an amazing question. I think that is going to be the future. It's going to be super customized. It's going to be just like another printer that you have in your office right now or in your kitchen, like a Keurig or something.
Charlie, can I throw my camera?
Oh, sure. Feel good. Thank you so much, Kayla. That was a great question, and I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And so there's mine. There's my 3D printer, Kayla. Absolutely. It is absolutely an appliance that everyone should have, in my opinion. If you like organizing, I have to say, amazing. All of these are just little Sterilite tubs.
Wow.
And I printed the little rails and I just threw some screws in. Let me turn my camera over here. These shelves are 3D printed. All these brackets that hold the shelves in are 3D printed. So I got this beautiful, unique shelving system that was just literally, I just took the boards and I cut them at 11 inches and screwed it up on the wall. So absolutely. I wanted to put my hats up on the wall, though there's a little mount. And I was like, these are taking up so much space on shelves. And within a few hours, right, I've got these nice little hat holders. It's mounted up on the wall. I don't have to wait for Amazon shipping. So if you like, I love organization.
So let me just say, can I pay you to print for me?
What's that?
Can I pay you to print some stuff for me?
Whatever. You let me know. Yeah. I mean, and that's the other, right? We were talking about the modeling piece. Where's my little, oh, here, it should be in here. So like the other problem comes in, we don't have a lot of the real world in the computer to base our information around. So, I mean, I'm kind of a specialist just because I've been playing with scanning tech and everything, but like, here's my drone. It didn't come with a nice hard case, but I want to throw it in a backpack. Well, I went in and I designed a perfectly custom card case that now I can put.
Oh, you know my God.
That's awesome.
So rather than trying to source it from the web, I now have a nice hard case.
Oh, it's perfect. Like,
yeah.
Look at that.
So I can throw that in my backpack and I'm not worried about it getting damaged.
Very cool.
But yeah, it's absolutely, and they're decent ones are like $200 now, $200 to $250. You can get in, you can play around. But modeling is key because that's the other piece is you can go on, like Rich was talking about, there's tons of models out there through Thingiverse is probably one of the biggest repositories of things you can print. The nice thing is most of the stuff in there is going to be already set up to print, but kind of going along with what Rich was talking about, the design piece. Printing is different than machining, different than injection molding. So the thought behind when you actually create the model of how is this going to print, because if you can imagine, I can't just print something floating in midair with most printers. There's a couple exceptions, but you can't just like start in the middle. It has to build on top. So, so those are the types of things you need to think about when you're both designing and then setting it up to be printed. So yeah, thank you. That's my.
You are amazing, Christopher. Wait, before you go, and before I let, oh, he left. That's okay.
No, I'm still here. I'm just shut my video off.
Okay, and Kayla, I'm going to shut your video off too. No offense, but your sound is still on. Thank you for that great question, by the way. But before we wrap this, let me just say, first of all, thank you so much for that like live demo, which I loved. By the way, Glenn is very impressed. He typed in the comments, "Wow."
It's awesome.
but just so you know, they both, Rich and Christopher, both spoke on the panel last year about the manufacturing at our event. So this is what I'm talking about when I tell you I know brilliant people, and I'm very thankful for them. And that I am going to be tapping them more for us in this community as we move forward. But having said that, this is what I'm talking about, right? There are things that we just saw and heard from the both of them that were really exciting and makes you think differently about it. I'm excited about the 3D printing in space. That's going to be huge. They're already starting. There's a 3D printing on the space station, of course, we know that. And so anyway, we'll be exploring this a lot more. Does anyone have a question before we leave and let Rich proceed with his weekend and me get a glass of wine? My glass of wine. Okay, anyone? Yes, thank you for putting this on. Definitely has, oh, good, Glenn. Thank you so much. Oh, Chris, thank you. Okay, so everybody's thanking us. Small, tiny group, but you know what? Big brains, big hearts, and we're all excited about the future. So Rich, do you have any parting words of advice for us about how we can learn about 3D printing in a way that's like exciting?
Oh, wow. That's a tall order. I'll just say at the crux of it, it's all about curiosity, right? It is predicting what could be, the art of the possible, and just pursuing that. It's innate curiosity.
The art of the possible and the curiosity. I love that. Thank you so much. Oh, Chris says find your local makerspace. That's true. Local makerspaces are great. We love them. I have one here in Jersey. Thank you so much, Rich. And thank you guys for joining us in the chat on the live stream. We will have this live for you, not live, reported. We'll have the recap in a day. And I'm going to give you guys links, and Rich will share links with us if he has anything to share with us that we can learn more about it. And listen, guys, connect with each other, connect with us, connect with Rich. Have a great weekend. All right.
Awesome.
Take care.
Hey, everyone.